Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Wayne Bradley Show this evening. This is your host, Wayne Bradley, and we've got some great things coming on the show this evening. We've got Tom McMillin, Representative Tom McMillin from the state of Michigan. We've also got the CEO of Michigan Ford, Brandon Jessup. It's going to be an interesting show because we have two different opinions on some of the same issues. We're going to talk a lot about the emergency financial manager law here in Michigan, how it's been changed and how obviously the state reps feel it's a good thing, and we're going to have Brandon Jessup from Michigan Ford, a nonprofit organization that's fighting this law. We're going to have him come on and talk about why he opposes the law. It's a lot of things going on in Michigan right now. I want to thank the Republican legislative branch for getting some things done this year that, quite frankly, I just didn't think that was going to get done so quickly. We've got education reform. We've passed budgets. We've got like I said, we've got this. Even though some people disagree with this emergency financial manager law, we've updated that. The state of Michigan is really trying to move forward, and I want to congratulate and thank everyone that's had a part in doing that. If you're interested in talking tonight on the show, give me a call, 347-996-3175. 347-996-3175. I want to hear why either you're for or oppose the new financial manager law, and why do you think it's a good or a bad thing? So feel free to give me a call tonight and let's talk about it. The first person we're going to talk to regarding everything that's going on in Michigan, education reform, the EFM law, and also he's got some non-discrimination bill that's coming up on the agenda. Representative Tom McMillin, who's becoming quite a force here in the state of Michigan. I would not be surprised to hear his name mentioned for governor in 2014 and a few other things. He's really stirring up the pot. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring Tom McMillin on the show, and we're going to talk about what's going on here in Michigan. Listen in on this interview, folks. Welcome to the Wayne Bradley Show this morning, and my guest this morning, who's been making quite the news lately here in the local media, is Representative Tom McMillin from the 45th District. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Wayne. Good to be on your show.
Thank you so much. You've had a busy 2011. When Governor Snyder was first elected, did you think this year in itself was going to be this busy and so much things were going to get done?
You know, I don't know that I would have thought all this would get done. I thought the challenge of the deficit being $1.4 billion and something that had been pushed off for years because we kept getting bailed out by the feds, I thought that was going to be, quite an issue, and we took care of that, pretty quickly by the end of May. So, I'm pleased. I'm very pleased.
All right. I want to first congratulate you and say congratulations on getting some education reform done here in the state of Michigan. It's been long overdue. Can you explain to the people listening out here what this new removing the cap on charters and what that means for parents here in the state of Michigan?
Sure, Wayne. This is something that I'm really passionate about as Chairman of Education Committee, newly appointed. I'm just excited because there have been, for decades, this state has allowed kids to be locked in failing schools, and I think it's unconscionable. I mean, as long as the adult employees are being taken care of, we just turned a blind eye. And there are so many kids that have had, pretty much doomed lives, or at least started way behind. And like I said, I think it's unconscionable. So this Senate Bill 618, which we expect the governor to sign tomorrow, will uncap charters. As you know, back in the early 90s, we implemented a charter school law, and we have not had it changed. We have not had the cap go up since then. So we've had 150. Now it's going to go up to 300 this coming year, and then in 2 years it'll go to over the following 2 years can go up another 200, and then it's uncapped starting January 1st, 2015.
Wow! Congratulations. That's a total victory for the parents here in the state of Michigan and their kids. Has there been any talk about something I'm kind of interested in is, has there been any talk of the private voucher program going on up there in Lansing? Has that been tossed around at all?
Well, that that requires a constitutional amendment, and back quite a while ago, they attempted that, I think in the late 90s, and it got soundly defeated, I think something like 70 to 30 at the statewide level. And so I don't anticipate, that moving forward. But, with the technology, we're going to take up Senate Bill 619 coming up, and that's cyber charter schools. And between cyber charter schools, and then, the upward pressure that it's going to put on the traditional schools to really innovate and start, really focusing on the kid, I think that you're going to see a transformation for the better throughout the state of Michigan.
Well, for the detractors, obviously we know there's going to be people that don't like this. They're saying that this is going to be the end to public schools as we know it. What do you have to say to those who would say that that's the end of public schools as we know it?
I can't imagine that. I live in Rochester Hills. We got a good school district, and people, said the same thing. It's going to hurt our district. I said, why? Who would leave our district unless there's some problems that parents have? This is going to help primarily the people in failing school districts. They're not going to set up new charters in an area that's got great schools. You got to have the demand. There may be a few here and there, but by and large, we're just going to unlock, unchain those kids that have been in failing schools, and we're going to give them hope. And, like the charter school that I was president of as a volunteer on the school board in Mount Clemens, Prevail Academy, I'd go to those parent-teacher conferences, and the parents would be beaming. Many of those kids came from Detroit, and they just said, my kid's got a chance now. He wouldn't have a chance without this charter school.
Excellent. Well, I hope that more parents are going to take advantage of this now, and like you said, give their kids a better chance at early success. Now, we've got a couple other issues on the board here that, like I said, have been making rounds lately. Can you tell me a little bit more about Bill 5039? That seems to be getting a lot of attention here lately.
Yeah, that's just, it just says that whatever the state has deemed as, to get special preferences, that's the Elliott Larson Act. So basically it says that, we give special preference, and you can't discriminate based on age, race, religion. They enumerate some of those items. And, the bill just says as long as you're in line with the state, that's fine, but you can't go any further. You can't amend the Elliott Larson Act kind of through a backdoor way of doing it at the local level. And we just can't have a patchwork of these kind of, it depends on which side of the road you're on. The law might allow you to do that or not. And really a lot of these local ordinances are quite discriminatory. They discriminate against Christian business owners. They discriminate against Boy Scouts. They discriminate, and so this would just say, and you know what, the proponents of these local ordinances actually have gone about it the right way lately. They said, let's amend the state law.
Okay.
And the Elliott Larson Act and make it uniform across the state. Now, you haven't heard much about that, but they made a big deal of it about 5 months ago, and I've been pointing to that. That's the right place to have the debate, is at the state level. And so, these ordinances, look, a Christian guy or a Christian lady who owns a business, under some of these ordinances, if their male employee came in wearing a dress and was at the counter serving citizens, they couldn't do anything about it, no matter how it reflected on their business. And these are things that impact Christians. Boy Scouts were told, or the city of Detroit was told by homosexual activists, you will not, let the Boy Scouts use city parks.
Wow.
To sue you under this local ordinance, and they backed away. The city backed away on it.
Now that's something I'm sure a lot of people don't even know about that. That's deep. You said the city of Detroit couldn't host something for the Boy Scouts based on.
Well, exactly. Based on the ordinance, they wouldn't let the Boy Scouts use their parks, so they're discriminating. These ordinances are used to discriminate against people of faith and people who hold different viewpoints. This crowd that says they're tolerant are very intolerant of people that disagree with them.
Oh yeah, that's more what I consider the norm. Is the minute you disagree with their what they consider intolerance, they don't become very tolerant anymore about views. So, well, thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. I'm sure a lot of people don't recognize some of the things going on behind the scenes, especially when you talk about the Boy Scouts. I think that's pretty amazing. I was a Cub Scout when I was little, and I couldn't imagine being denied being able to go to a park based on something some group is fighting for. But that is the norm nowadays.
You know, this is the kind of ordinance, like in New Mexico, there was a photographer who was a Christian guy who didn't want to photograph a gay ceremony, a wedding type thing or some kind of, and he was fined $7,000 under the city ordinance. Just for saying, no, this is not something that I want to do. In Ypsilanti, I mean, there was a printer that was harassed by a city ordinance in Ypsilanti over similar thing where he didn't want to print, stuff that he does for printing. He was a Christian for a homosexual dance or some kind of a gathering, and he said no, and he was, condemned and harassed under a similar ordinance. So these are things that really, they're used as tools to go after anybody that disagrees with them.
Wow. Now, the big issue that I wanted to talk to you about, because it's gotten a lot of attention down here in the Detroit area, is this emergency financial manager law and the updates that's been brought to it. Detroit, I guess right now, is under review, and it's getting to the point where they're going to have to decide if they're going into to the receivership. For people that are listening, and I have a lot of people in Detroit that are listening, can you explain to them the EFM law, why it's necessary, and why it's not something that could be it could be a good thing for the city of Detroit?
Sure. I mean, the EFM law was put in place by Governor Blanchard back in the 80s, and it resulted in a lot of lawsuits. I mean, EFMs spent more time in court because the city councils would sue them every time they turned around. So there was a lot of ambiguity and gray areas within the law, and so now we updated that. Now there's no EFM, it's EM. It's just emergency manager. And, it lays out numerous steps that say, here's the various things we do beforehand to try and keep you out of EM. In the past, we didn't have these kind of ways of trying to keep them out of an emergency. So now it's a lot more proactive, but ultimately it says, look, if you guys aren't going to make a few tough decisions and turn your city around, the state taxpayers may be on the hook for your bonds, which in Detroit is, $10 billion or in that range. So, we've got a vested interest to go in there and make sure that we, get things right, the ship righted, and then we'll get out of there. And during that time, I will say that, the council and the elected officials are suspended. And it really goes back to what I said before, that in the past, we saw that those elected officials would just continuously take the EM to court or the EFM to court. So, it says basically, look, if you can't get your act together for, years and years, these have been years coming,
right?
We're ultimately going to make sure it gets done.
Right.
And so that's pretty much it.
How long do you typically see an EM having to be in the city to get it turned around? What would be is it a year, 2 years, 6 months? How long do you typically see these EMs being in these cities to get things right?
Well, it is a relatively new law. We have seen that in Benton Harbor, they have been in the red for years, and now they're going to be in the black come 2012 because of the EM that came in there. So, we're seeing in Pontiac that there was an EFM, same with Benton Harbor, by the way, but then when the law changed, it gave the EM clearer powers to quickly turn it around and get out of there. And so that's what we're seeing. It depends on how bad it is, to be quite honest. I mean, I remember talking to the President Pro Tem Brown over there in the City Council of Detroit. What's his name?
Gary Brown.
Yeah, Gary Brown. I talked to him back last year, and he was telling me that it's pretty bad. I mean, there's many areas, or almost all the areas, where accounting isn't even done with a computer. It's done on paper still. I mean, we were talking about transparency and how to get it into Detroit, and he said, Tom, you wouldn't believe what I'm seeing. They're back. So, if there are systems that are just not updated and are going to be problematic, it might take a little time. Hopefully said, he doesn't want to, he doesn't want somebody in there running the city. He wants to get in there. If it's going to happen, make some changes and get out of there and give it back to the people.
Okay. Now, the thing that I've heard, and I was going to have Brandon Jessup, who you guys kind of had a little communication on Facebook, from Michigan Ford. He's the CEO, and these guys have been fighting the whole law with petitions and everything like that. They feel like it's almost a civil rights issue of the voters not being able to put their people in place to make the decisions. Is it simply the fact that those elected officials have been letting down the voters, and that's why this is necessary?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, if we had no vested interest as a state, but remember, cities and townships are creation of the state.
Right.
And so, and we ultimately are on the hook for the debt of a city. So, we have a vested interest. And like I said, and like you just said, I mean, if they get their act together and make a few tough decisions, there's no need for an EM. And so, this crowd that basically it's the I want to be able to spend without worrying about the consequences crowd. They've got to make sure that we've got to turn things around, and we need adults making adult decisions, and if they won't make a few tough decisions, then we're going to make it for them because we're all on the hook.
Right. Now, are there any other bills coming? Almost about to get out here for the holidays. Are there any other bills that we should be paying attention to or being aware of? That anything getting done before the holiday season here?
No, our last day was this past Thursday.
Okay.
But Wayne, I wanted to mention that there was another thing that Mr. Jessup was talking about was that contracts can't be changed. That is one thing the EM does is they can go in and change these contracts with unions and others that that have Cadillac benefits or have been getting pay increases while the rest of us have been getting pay cuts. And so, there is going to be some issues in court, but, the court cases say basically that if it's necessary to the public good, then the contracts can be impaired or changed.
So can they actually get rid of employees as well, or can they just reduce benefits? Does it give the manager the complete control to do whatever he deems necessary? If he has to...
yeah, I mean, people have been able to lay off in order to get budgets in line. That's with, there's no contract that says you can't lay anybody off. They just may say that you can't, change our benefits or whatever. But, no, I mean, that's the unfortunate thing is sometimes they won't change their benefits in order to preserve enough people to actually do the functions. They just want to kind of let the younger guys go who don't have seniority, and that's a problem. So an EM may need to go in there and change some contracts, do some consolidating, and then get out of there as soon as the ship is righted.
Okay.
But there's nothing. Back to your original question, Wayne. There's nothing else between now and January 10th or so, and education will be going on dual enrollment, some bills that came over from the Senate along with this charter expansion, the 619, the cyber charter school expansion, dual enrollment, shared services between public and private schools. So there's some things on the agenda.
Do we get the biggest blowback from unions when you start asking them to reduce their benefits? This was being the problem throughout the state, not just in city employment. Is this one of the biggest hurdles?
Yeah, if people are making $50,000 on average, and we say, look, we got to cut back to 45, or else we're going to have to lay off 10% of the people. The other 90% say, hey, lay off those 10%. I want to keep mine at $50,000. So, yeah, that's the balancing act. And too often it seems like the unions will say, we'd rather jeopardize the ability to serve the public. We just want to, by reducing the number of employees, we just want to make sure that nobody touches our pay and benefits. And remember, according to the Census Bureau, in the last decade in Michigan, average household income has gone down 21.3%, and we haven't seen that in the public sector by and large. I mean, on average, not nothing like that. It's been going up in the last decade.
Well, I was at church yesterday. I was at church yesterday, and my pastor, who's in Detroit, in the heart of Detroit, he said, how much worse can it be if we let a financial manager come in and get things together? He was talking about a situation where a young lady got hit in the middle of the road and no one came to get her for 30, 40 minutes in the city right now. I don't really see if it takes a half a year to a year to get things straightened out there. I don't see where the real problem should be.
Well, in Pontiac, you ask citizens in Pontiac, they've seen a noticeable increase in police presence since the EM went in there and contracted with the county sheriff and disbanded the police. I'm sure he didn't want to do that, but in order to right that ship, they had to. And now response times are a lot better. And I think they had to talk about getting more jail space because they're actually getting the criminals now. And so, yeah, can I guarantee that? No, but I think that, like your pastor said, maybe there's just upward that's going to happen, with an EM.
Okay.
Hopefully, again, the city will make those decisions so we don't need to send one in. Nobody wants that, but it may be what's needed.
All right. Well, if people are more interested in following you either on Facebook or Twitter, can you give them some information so people can follow you? You're one of the more interesting guys here in the state legislature. Can you give them some information so they can keep in touch with you?
Well, I'm not a Twitter person. I've been careful. I think that politicians got to be careful with what you say, and if you can't really. But yeah, Facebook. If you go, if you search Tom McMillin, McMillin, you can find my political page. And how do you follow? I have a e-newsletter that I send out every other week. So you could go to my website, Representative Tom McMillin. .com and be able to sign up for that as well.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. Happy holiday. Merry Christmas, because we don't say that enough around here. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you and your family, Tom.
Amen. Thanks, brother. And same to you, Wayne.
All right. Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye. Well, that was Tom McMillin, the, like I said, state representative. And like I said, he's been doing some really big things in the state. The Republican legislative branch does not let us down. There's a few other issues I know people are looking for, but Rick Snyder will be interested to see what else he tackles in the coming year. They've really made some groundbreaking things happen here in Michigan. I think what you have with Governor Snyder is someone that is strictly by the numbers kind of person. He's been getting things done based on that. He doesn't, make a lot of loud and outrageous statements. He just goes about his business. It's going to be very interesting to see how this whole emergency manager situation works out for the city of Detroit. I think personally that the city has a lot of issues that needs to be fixed. Can it be fixed on its own? I guess the state will have something to say about that, but I think that even if it does end up working on its own, I think the threat of having that financial manager over elected officials will help right the wrongs in some of these places where tough decisions just were not being made. So I want to thank everybody that's listening at the end of the day. Hey, Major Guy, you say you live out in Pontiac, and you say you live out in Pontiac. Understand the concept of the EFM, but you don't know a Republican in Pontiac supports the EM law. Well, I said that would be a tough situation if you live in the city, just like the people who live in Detroit. Do you want someone coming in and basically taking over for the people that you've elected to become officials? To me, I think every situation is different. Detroit is unique in the fact that people are elected based off name recognition, and you have some people are doing a good job, some people aren't. I don't want to call people out specifically right now, but I think that and overall it's been a long term. The leadership has let down the city, and I think at this point now, when you start really needing the state to bail you out, you're going to be in a situation where people are going to want accountability, and if you're asking for the state to come in and do something, they probably want some of their people around that they can rely on to get things done. And if they need to get, I think the part that a lot of people have issues with is they can get out of these union contracts. What do you think? Give me a call if you're listening in the Detroit area, 347-996-3175. We're going to bring on Brandon Jessup real soon. He's going to talk about why he opposes the law. Now, his interview was a little more explosive with some of the rhetoric and comparisons, but that's my guy, and I think you could tell in the interview that I was a little surprised by that. But I think that there are some valid concerns. Rick Snyder seems to not be opposed to letting people vote on the issue if they can obviously get the petitions and enough signatures to get on the ballot to let the people of the state of Michigan decide if this should people repeal this law or not. So. I think that's an interesting thing. I think Rick Snyder, as always, he is very diplomatic in what he says and does. He's tried on issues that conservatives like, which is obviously balancing the budget and being fiscally conservative. I think he's satisfied most of them, and although he has not done it on some other issues concerning like the bridge and things of that nature, and also he didn't get out of Obamacare, which I think is very interesting. Now the legislative branch and the Senate is fighting it on other ways to do it, but Governor Snyder himself did not opt out when when all the other Republican governors throughout the country that I know of have done so. So he's taking his own approach to a lot of different issues, and I think he'll continue to do that. There are some issues like the right to work that I don't think that he's going to, be willing to touch. I mean, we have a conservative, Republican-led House and Senate, and I don't know if that's going to get passed anytime soon because of the divisiveness of it that Rick Snyder sees in that issue. And I'm sure he's looked over at Governor Walker and looked over in Ohio and realized that is going to be a tough battle, and I don't know if that's what he wants to do right now. We'll see. So. The next person we're going to have come on the show is a friend of mine. I'm Brandon Jessup. He is the CEO and chairman of Michigan Forward. He has been fighting this law, like he says, since June, trying to get people signed up for the petition so they can get on the ballot to repeal this law. They worked very hard throughout the different cities that are actually, in the chance of becoming under the EFM law, and including Flint, Pontiac, Detroit. He's been in Ann Arbor, so they've been very active. My feeling personally is that it's kind of taking up for some bad leadership in the area, but I think he addresses the situation. So we're going to bring on Brandon Jessup, and I'll let you listen to what he has to say about this EFM law. Listen in.
Welcome back to the Wayne Bradley Show. This evening I got a guest on the show who's been on before, someone I consider a friend. Sometimes we're on different sides of the argument, but someone that I definitely enjoy debating with, and I'm a frequent guest on his show, Common Ground Talk Radio. Brandon Jessup, the CEO of Michigan Forward's on the show. Welcome back to the show, Brandon.
Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm all right. First of all, Merry Christmas to you. Got the holidays coming up. Merry Christmas to you and the family.
Oh, thank you, man. Same to you, Doc. I know you had an early Christmas present.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very, very, very happy about that. Hey, look, we got a lot going on here. I wanted to talk to you because we got so many different things going on in the state of Michigan and the city. I wanted to talk to you. Obviously, we're going to talk a little bit more about the emergency financial manager law and what's going on, but we've had some other events over the last couple of weeks that have been interesting. What did you think about the light rail project being basically denied for now?
Yeah, it's a disappointment to see our state, city, and federal leadership to be so out of sync on a project just as important as this. To see almost 5 years of a lot of research, a lot of investment. Not only just from the public sector, but from the private sector as well, to be pretty much niched. Due to, various factors, local leadership not handling their budgets properly, local leadership not feeling confident in their own local economy, the state not feeling comfortable in their largest economy. Sends a real bad message to the federal level of government, and I really hope that we can get this thing back on track before before too much time elapses.
Do you think there's a chance that private development could, private investment can make that work? Because I mean, when you have a situation when the federal funds, if they're not willing to do it, is there any private entities that are willing to invest in a project like that?
Well, Michigan Forward, we've done a considerable amount of research around this issue, and what we found is that with the M1 line specifically, that the private community has stepped up to pay the other 75% of the building costs for that project. So the private community is there, and they definitely want to see this happen. That's the pipeline for redevelopment. So if we don't have the M1 line, if we can't build light rail down Woodward, we really need to go back and step back with, I believe, in some cases, a real roadmap for the private community to feel more comfortable moving forward.
Because, I mean, the thing is, you had an agreement, the city of Detroit and the state basically saying they couldn't, for the long term, afford that kind of project. So where is the disconnect, and how did it get to this point where we were so close, I guess, to that project getting done, and then everyone realizing they can't do it? Where's the breakdown of communication, and where do you put the foot of that? Who's the biggest problem in that scenario?
I think the breakdown in communication is between the state and local government. The operating costs for the beginning of the project weren't meant to be totally paid for by the municipality. Actually, the ridership, which has been proven to be more than enough to fund the project and to keep the project going and running, was definitely where we were. And that's where I get concerned about, how the operating cost would have ballooned to be so much to where not even a ridership, which is over 175,000 people a day, not just DDOT, but when you add in SMART as well, you reach over 200,000 mass transit users a day. And the support is there, the demand is there, and once again, I think the state and local governments, they need to go back and revisit the math and see, what parts of this project could they not afford? Those things have not come out into the public yet, and I'll be looking forward to see when they come.
Okay. Now, we had another big issue that happened in the last week, and I think it's a good thing. I'm actually rejoicing over it. I don't know how you feel. Education reform. They finally raised the caps on the charters, and there'll be more education choices for parents, and not only in Detroit, but throughout the state. What's your take on that?
I think it's a step towards, further privatizing schools, but the real question is, if you have a traditional schooling system in your community, or you have, more charter schools in your community, we need to make sure that we're getting the right amount of support down to the student level. We need to make sure that we handle not only just the charter school, the measure or the medium in which we deliver education, but we need to look at the academics, and we haven't really gone back to the academic part of this conversation with our state education system since 2006. And are we still preparing our kids for the 21st century economy? I don't think we're there yet. And regardless of what type of public school you attend, whether it be charter or traditional, we still need to make sure that our kids are learning today's or learning and preparing for tomorrow's world today. And I don't think, that one piece of legislation will get us there.
But do you at least think it's a move in the right direction? I mean, we can't sit still as far as education. I mean, essentially, we've sat still on education in Michigan for a long time. Do you think at least it's a step in the right direction, and maybe, give it a chance, I guess, is the best way to look at it?
No, because it doesn't really get us anywhere as far as educational equity. If we have, you increase the cap on charter schools, that means that more charter schools enter our larger school systems. But once again, what are we doing as far as making sure literacy is a priority in the state? We haven't seen anything from our state legislature encouraging literacy on a adolescent level or even at the adult level. Also, we haven't seen too much as far as increasing funding to K-12 entities. Increasing the limit on charter schools doesn't increase funding going into our systems.
But wouldn't you suggest that it's not necessarily just a funding issue? I mean, we've had kids get way more money per average now than they did 20 years ago, 30 years ago when results were better. Obviously, there's some community issues and things of that nature. Why wouldn't we want to at least put in place something that gets, I mean, because if you're in a failing public school system, if you live in Detroit, your options are really limited on what you can do. If you don't want to send your kids to Detroit public schools, you've got to use addresses and other districts and things of that nature. Don't you think this is at least the opportunity to give parents the option, if they want to keep their kids in the city, to give them more options than what they currently have?
Well, rotten apple and Royal Oak is a rotten apple in Dearborn, too. And regardless of what type of, where you go for education, if the standard doesn't change, we still haven't made any progress. And I feel that changing that decreasing the cap on charter schools doesn't necessarily increase the standard for education in Michigan. It just gives more options. And, sooner or later we may find that, more options didn't really get us to where we wanted to go. We need to really increase the standard and expectations of education in Michigan. And that can only happen at the state level.
Okay. All right, well, we'll look into that issue further down the line. I think it's a good thing you don't. We're going to, as usual, we find ourselves on the opposite side of some issues, but we're going to keep moving forward. I want to talk to you a lot about the issue that your organization, Michigan Forward, has really honed in on the last, I would say, how long has it been, about a year and a half, this emergency financial manager law?
Well, no, the emergency manager law, it passed March 26th of this year. We've only been really rallying around it for the last 6 months. We began a campaign June 18th, so. Okay.
All right.
Actually, it's 6 months today.
6 months today, and you guys have really made a lot of headway on it. I mean, you've been on a lot of different media sources talking about this whole situation. At the crux of it, you have explained to the people that are listening so they understand what the emergency manager law was, what the intent was, and what your issue is with the law.
Well, I still kind of question what the legislature's intent was when they passed this legislation. We believe that it was to be, as Governor Snyder has said, an early warning system for communities who are facing financial crisis or financial distress.
Right.
But it always happens after someone's announced that they're distressed. So I don't know where the early warning is in that. But really, if you go back to Governor Blanchard, in the 80s when he first passed the first generation of this law, it was to save communities that were facing bankruptcy. Hamtramck was really the test case for that.
Okay.
Now, with so many changes in how states share revenue with the local communities, we've seen more of a manufacturing crisis for communities that base most of their budgets from revenue sharing. And we have to be kind of clear about what revenue sharing actually does. It's from this is revenue generated from our local economies that now is being held more at the state level. And I understand that the state is in a fiscal crisis as well.
Okay.
If we walked into this year saying that, well, wait, the state's in a fiscal crisis, our local communities are in a fiscal crisis, the federal government's in a fiscal crisis, we probably should look at other ways as to shore up our economies, not only handling the state first, but to handle the local economies, and we haven't done that, so.
Okay. Now, the idea, like you said, the intent, I guess the original intent with Governor Blanchard was to prevent cities from going into bankruptcy or to, like you said, be a precursor to help them not go into bankruptcy. The situation in Detroit, they're under review right now. They are not officially under this financial manager yet. If they go through the review process and make the changes without going into the actual, the manager status, would that satisfy your organization that they've done what the state is actually supposed to do?
No, because we see that this law, once again, we feel it's a violation of voting rights and it's a violation of democracy. Because for one, this law removes all the self-determination from local communities.
Okay.
So after we've, elected people into public office, we've possibly, even though they may not perform well.
Okay.
But we have democracy to work that piece out. And when you remove the public from this entire process, you not only disengage the public, but you misinform the public because they can't get engaged. So how can we really track the progress that we're paying for? At the end of the day, all of this process is being funded and powered by public tax dollars, local tax dollars. So we want to see our tax dollars being spent accountable, with accountability, with transparency, and with some type of due process. And Public Act 4 wipes all of that off the table. So, it's being done, once again, in the face of a financial emergency. We don't see where, in any aspect of our American form of life, where it's okay to throw out democracy for a financial emergency. Hitler did the same thing in the 1930s. We saw how Germany. Germany failed with that. And if you look at the history, it's the same exact thing that happened. So where is it okay to disenfranchise voters? And no one's giving us an answer to that. As a matter of fact,
but wait, just before we
on Flashpoint, Governor Snyder even said himself, well, hey, maybe the citizens of the state of Michigan and residents of the state of Michigan should have a chance to vote on Public Act 4. So he's understanding where we're coming from as far as democracy and people having their say.
Right.
Glad that the governor is starting to at least hear part of our concerns.
Well, it's always been my take, as a conservative, that Rick Snyder is probably, in that situation, would be the best governor that you want to have in this position. He's not exactly what I would consider a hardcore conservative governor, and he's been lenient on other issues. He's tried to push this bridge project through, a public bridge project. Why isn't he? Of course, he wouldn't mind having a vote on it, but why is it that this law, like you said, it's democracy? What is to hold back bad leadership in cities like Detroit? Not everyone. I'm not painting a broad stroke with everyone here, but you have bad leadership in the city of Detroit. In Detroit, a lot of the voting is based off name recognition and power structure. So how do you correct that if you're constantly recycling and voting in the same kind of people that are leading these cities in these situations where they have to come to the state and need to be bailed out?
That's a very interesting question, Wayne, and I face that quite a bit. And when it comes to bad leadership or poor leadership, or what some people may think is, ineffective leadership, which is the term that we like to use, they're ineffective. Of course, that's where the public needs to get more citizens engaged, as you've pointed to a little bit, where when you got large cities, and the engagement goes down, how do you handle that problem? And we feel that the treasurer's office has more than enough authority to guide municipalities through this process. Now, we don't believe that the treasurer's office should have power to cancel contracts. We don't believe that the governor or the treasurer's office should have power to sell public assets without any say-so from the public. But we do feel that the treasurer's office should have a lot more oversight in how spending is being done at some of these local municipalities, and that's that kind of consistent hand that we should see with our local municipalities that may not be able to manage effectively their local budgets, and not just the political hammer that we're feeling from Public Act 4.
What could a treasurer do? If a treasurer can't amend contracts and break contracts, what real teeth or what kind of power does he really have to fix a problem in the city of Detroit in particular? What can he really do if he can't go to a union and say, look, if I can't get this done, then I'm going to wipe it clean anyway? What power does he have? Where is his negotiation? Where does he stand?
Well, we're drafting legislation now and actually building an issue brief based on our recommendations for a better system to help communities in fiscal distress. I'm not really in a position to talk too in depth about that now.
Okay.
We will be presenting that to the Michigan legislature as the second option. And also we're encouraging more ways to build more public-private partnerships, to build tax bases and generate revenue within these local communities. Privatization, 100% full privatization, is something that the public does not want to see.
Right.
But we do want to see, public and private entities working together for better communities, for better local economies. And this is where the public can encourage the city council very sternly.
Okay.
in these instances strategic in how they handle public assets and how we retain the wealth in our public assets and specifically enterprise systems and have them work not only just for our own gain but also for a better community. So I don't want to say too much about that right now, but we are drafting an issue brief and also hopefully corresponding with legislation with a few members of both sides of the aisle in the State House. We hope to have that ready sometime in January, maybe in February.
Now, I spoke with Representative Tom McMillin earlier. He's been drafting up a lot of this, this information in the legislature. He says that basically if you're gonna have to bail out cities who have irresponsible leadership, why wouldn't the states want to have more say-so in the way things are getting done? How would you answer that? Because obviously you get people to vote for it. You're trying to get this petition drive. If you get people to vote for it, how would you convince, on a statewide level, people who are not involved in Detroit that look at it like, well, I have to use part of my dollars to help bail out Detroit? How would you convey the message that somehow that voter rights are being lost in this financial situation?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny how we found a way to mince both voting rights and economics. Last time voting rights and economics came this close together, slavery was on the issue, and so we got to be very clear about voting rights.
You hurting me, man. You hurting me with that one.
Hey, it's true. Voting rights should never be curtailed in the sign of any economic distress. American citizens, American residents, amongst any state, to always maintain their right to vote, regardless of what the situation is.
Okay.
Secondly, over 80 municipalities right now are facing, or they're a month away or 2 months away, or economic slip-up away from economic crisis. So, and also, as reported last year, and has been sustained in the other economic reports around our school district, over 150 school districts will be facing economic crisis or are teetering on that brink. Just today, a Muskegon High School District, they are now under financial review. And this is becoming a pandemic across the state.
Right.
Really, it's up to the legislature to say, well, wait, this is not about bailout. This is about how do we reinvest into our local communities, how do we reinvest into our school districts, how do we reinvest and build the capacity for our local economies to do more. We haven't seen that happen. Once again, as I said, in the budget cut and changes made by our state legislature this year, that a lot of funds have been redirected back to the state coffers. They are projecting at least a $300 million surplus coming into 2012. The question for the state legislature is what are you going to do with this surplus? Yes, we could save it for the rainy day, and I'm guaranteeing that the clouds are already forming, and the rain is going to come. So instead of us waiting and being reactive, now we have to be proactive and say, well, how do we stop this onslaught of municipalities failing, of school districts failing economically, and really getting in front of the problem that we see is already coming. As I said, if you do the math, 80 municipal districts, 80 municipalities looking at financial distress, over 150 school districts looking at financial distress. Right now, that's 230 municipalities and districts across this state that we'll have to find emergency managers for. That's a very busy treasurer's office. I'd rather see my treasurer doing other things than managing the financial crises all across the state.
Have you had any of the actual city council members of Detroit, who this obviously would affect them, have you had any of them actually standing up with you fighting this law that they feel is unjust?
Absolutely. The entire city council passed a resolution supporting the repeal of Public Act 4 September 13th, 2011.
Okay.
So, as many council members now may say one way or another about the argument, we have the entire city council that unanimously approved a resolution to support our efforts. So.
What do you think of the efforts between the city council and the mayor's office to get something resolved before this actually becomes a reality? What do you think they've done so far? How have they handled it so far? And what do you think they really need to do to get something done so this doesn't become a reality in Detroit?
I think a lot of cookie cutter and Band-Aid patches that we've seen, not just in Detroit, but I mean Flint, Benton Harbor, all across the state. Communities facing this issue. We started to do the same things: cut. And you can't cut anymore. And the first thing that gets cut is city services. And really, we're urging the city council not to look at this operating in a silo. This is the best time now to engage the community in what the problems are of this community and have open, frank discussions about how city government operates. As you know, as we canvass the community, we can face the question quite a bit. Well, what is your option? What is your solution? And it hurts me and it pains our organization, it pains our volunteers to have such a shallow amount of information from city council, from the state, from our mayor regarding what the city's financial crisis is and what the state's financial standing really is. We've offered suggestions 3-4 weeks ago regarding how the city could help to balance its cash flow problem, just by simply collecting taxes.
Right.
And not only from the individuals that may work in the city or live in the city, but the corporations too that definitely help to power our state's economy and our local economy. We need them to pitch in and come to the table.
So you want them to pay more taxes right now? You want the
No, it's not for taxes at all. But if I'm sorry if inviting the corporate community to the table equates to a tax increase.
That's what it sounds like. I mean, it sounds like you suggested they pay more taxes.
Yeah. But you know what? When you have a problem in your household, I doubt it, Wayne, if you'll try to solve that problem on your own. You have a wife, y'all get together and come to some type of compromise and solution. Right now, we only have 3 of the 4 major players at the table. You got the faith community, you got the elected community, you have the labor community at the table, but the corporate community isn't there. Coming together to build in one project, as we said earlier, you had all 4 of those entities in place. Now, in the financial crisis, you only got 3 players in place. That's not right. That's not the attitude, and that's not really a constructive way we see to solving the city's problems.
All right. Well, in my household, I am the EFM brand, and I have the rules to break all the rules I need to do to get things right around here. So I don't know. I'm supporting you. I think that it's a tough battle because obviously my only issue is defending bad leadership. I understand when you're looking at it from a voting standpoint, but in Detroit, leadership has really, in some ways, let down the citizens of Detroit. If people want to get more involved with your campaign, what's the website address and what can they do to get more involved?
Yes, MichiganForward.org. That's MichiganForward.org. That's our website. You can find us on Twitter at MiForward. You can also call us at the office 313-965-2722. And we're right at the end of our capital fundraising campaign. We'd love to see support from the other side of the aisle as we build progressive policy for our urban center.
All right. Well, Brandon, thanks again for coming on the show. I look forward to coming back on the show with you again soon. And thanks for coming on. Happy holidays, my brother.
Hey, no doubt, man. Same to you. And we'll see you Thursday. We'll get it together.
Let's do it.
All right, Doc.
All right. Talk to you later.
So that was Brandon Jessup talking about the EFM Law, and I'll probably be on his show on Thursday. We'll talk a little bit more about that and some more about this education reform. I have an issue. He knows that about using some of that rhetoric about comparing it to slavery and Hitler and things like that. I think that is the kind of divisive language that will get people to talk one way or the other. I don't think that this is much of a civil rights issue as it is the fact that we just choose bad leadership in a lot of these places. It's not just in Detroit. It's these reviews have been going on in Allen Park, different Taylor places are actually a lot of different, like you said, over 80 different municipalities. This is not just the issue in Detroit. It's a lot of different places that are going through this. So, I just don't see where if it takes 6 months to a year to fix something, Detroit needs it. And I hope that, again, maybe the people get to vote on it so that can put it to rest where it's not something that people feel unfair about. I think people should get a chance to vote on it. But I think when you have most of the state that's looking at it from the standpoint of this is a Detroit versus the state vote, I think it's going to be a rough sell, and I can see that's probably how they would try to sell that. That's going to be the rest of the state. Should we have to be paying for Detroit? Now I can see that's the way that would be, the way that would be sold to voters. So we'll see what happens. What do you think, folks, about the EFM law? Is it fair, unfair? Is it something, civil rights being taken away? Major says that certain things like the EFM should be required to still deal with the citizens, answer the citizens. He says that they shouldn't be raising taxes. Maybe they should look at more service cuts. I don't know what other services they can cut out of Pontiac, but he said that there should be some options as opposed to just raising taxes on the people, the citizens of Pontiac. So I think that things always can be looked at and reviewed. I think that you have to make these tough decisions, and I think a lot of times because elected officials, their job is to stay elected. A lot of times they make decisions that don't sound good politically from getting voted back in, but might be the right thing for the city. It's like giving someone that's sick some medicine. They might not taste good, but you got to do it to get them to feel better. So I think it'll be interesting to see what goes on. So if you're interested, give me a call here. I want to hear from you. 347-996-3175. Again, that number is 347-996-3175. You can also call in. I'm probably on Skype at 347-996-3175. I want to hear from you. Still got a lot of people going a little nutty over here over Ron Paul. I'm sure I got a Ron Paul guy on the line. I just haven't picked his phone call up because he called from the same number last night looking for a pizza. I know he was talking about Herman Cain or something, so who knows, but let's get close to the end. Let's see what we got here. Caller, you on the air.
999. 999.
Yep, I figured that was that Ron Paul supporter again, but 999, I got you. I guess Ron Paul and Herman Cain have about the exact same chance of being nominated president now, so it doesn't matter. I know that chaffs a couple people over there, but give me a call, 347-996-3175. I'm only going to spend a few minutes talking about this. I don't want to get the phones burned up with Ron Paul people calling, but you know what? It might be interesting. I don't know. Let me see if I can, I've kind of been going back and forth with on Twitter a little bit about this, and on Facebook about Ron Paul. We can finish up the show talking about that. Being from Detroit, he does not have any kind of agenda that he's made a lot of different statements over the years that would cause me to have concern for voting for him. His worst thing going on for him is his foreign policy, and I'm only going to stick on this for a minute because I just keep getting all these buzzes on Twitter, and that guy that just called, I already know who that was. He's a big-time Ron Paul supporter. His foreign policy is just terrible, and I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to get into all the other things, the Civil War issues, and all the other, I won't call it racist, but insensitive issues. But give me a call if you want to say anything about them. 347-996-3175. I'll leave the phones open for debate on that. We're still talking. We're going to talk a little bit about the rest of the debates. We got more debates coming up. We got voting in Iowa soon. I still think Ron Paul's going to do good in Iowa. I just don't think he'll get very, very much further than that. I do think that he will come in at the very least third place, but there's a good chance he might come in second or could possibly win Iowa. So, though I don't really like his politics, he is pretty popular amongst his supporters, and I think that's going to be big in Iowa. So we'll see what happens. So, taking calls. Give me a call, 347-996-3175. After listening to State Rep Tom McMillin this evening and Brandon Jessup, Who do you think is right on this issue of the EFM law? Give me a call. We got a few more moments on the show. 347-996-3175. Major Guy who lives in Pontiac says that he has issues with the fact that the EFM does not have to answer at all to citizens. Now, that's something I did know. I mean, he's not having town hall meetings, not talking things over with the citizens. I think that's something that seems like will be something reasonable that could be rectified. If not, give me clarification on that. I'll need to maybe ask Tom McMillin about that, and Brandon Jessup also. If you can't have access to the EFM, the financial manager doesn't have any responsibility to citizens, I think that would be unfair policy considering the fact that he can raise taxes on them. So that's something we need to look into more. Give me a call, 347-996-3175. I want to hear from you. If you live in a city where you do have this financial manager, I think there's, one place up further up closer to the on the west side of Michigan, and we also have Flint that almost went into it. I don't know if anybody, like I said, people are living under the threat of it right now, and I think that's going to give a lot of smaller cities to get things in order. Detroit is going to be that is something that's going to be something so much larger because of the amount of workers. Give me a call, 347-996-3175. Thanks, Major Guy, for your input on the situation living out in Pontiac. You're on the chat boards here, kind of let me know what's going on. Again, I think we got to know all the details, and if you got people that live in those cities, it's good to get the word out there. Thank you again, Major. Anybody else that lives in Pontiac? I've heard good things about the police department with Sheriff Bouchard and the Oakland County Sheriff's Department working in Pontiac now. So I don't know. Give me a call if you're out in Pontiac and you want to talk a little bit more about how the financial manager has changed Pontiac. I want to hear from you. Want to hear from some callers. Caller, you're on the air.
999.
I don't know why I keep even letting this guy on the air, so that'll be the last call for that Ron Paul supporter. Give me a call, 347-996-3175. All right, well, we're going to be going off the air soon. I want to encourage everybody to check out the website, conservativeiscool.com. That's where you can register, and we can stay updated on all kind of topics and polls, recent updates. I keep you going on Twitter at WB Conservative. All that's found on the website, conservativeiscool.com. You'll get all my most memorable interviews and radio shows with some of my favorite guests. Love for you guys to hear Gary Glenn's interview again. That guy is on fire. Anytime he does an interview, I tell people just get your popcorn ready because you never know what Gary Glenn's going to say. He's like I said, that was one of my favorite interviews in 2011. I got to say, he went hard on Pete Hoekstra, and I like Pete Hoekstra, but Gary Glenn he truly does not mince words when he's talking about why he should be the next senatorial candidate here from Michigan. So if you get a chance, just go to the website, conservativeiscool.com. It has all kind of updates, all kind of polls, different rants we talk about. I've been talking a lot about the different presidential candidates, and I'm getting pretty close to making a decision on who I want to support. And we'll talk about that a little bit more going into the year. So I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas out there. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everyone who's been listening to the show. This year it was kind of a rough year. We had a lot going on. I had the birth of my son, and it's been a rough year trying to figure out exactly the best way to bring more thought-provoking material and ideas to the show. I created a nonprofit organization that's really going to focus a lot more in the future on educational issues and trying to do things in the community, because I think you got to start in your own backyard. So I'm really looking forward to working with that in 2012. The website address is urbanconservativeleague.org, and I encourage you to just go on there and check it out. And I'm open for any ideas, open for any suggestions and volunteers in that endeavor. So I appreciate you taking the time for listening on the radio show. We're going to really rev it up for 2012. You know, it's an election year. It's always fun during election years talking to all the candidates across the country. I had congressional races from across the country in 2010. Can't wait to get started on doing that again. Probably be down at CPAC really getting to know some of these new candidates. So I look forward to it. If you got any questions, any concerns, give me a call here on the open line, 347-996-3175. Again, follow me on Twitter at WBConservative. And if you want to follow me on my personal Twitter page where you might catch me interacting with all kind of different people on there, it's Conservative Bro. Like I said, that's my account where I hook up with a lot of my buddies that played at MSU. We talk a lot about sports and different things and music, so it's a little more personal on there, but it's still fun. So either one, Conservative Bro or at WB Conservative on Twitter. And again, the website is conservativeschool.com. We're going to be signing off here on the Wayne Bradley Show tonight. I appreciate all the listeners and everybody that's on the chat board. So if you have any, again, we're going to be on later in the week. Signing out for the night. Thank you. God bless you, and good night.